When you're really sick, I was chronically ill for years and years before I even knew I was chronically ill, right? And I was being misdiagnosed for decades. All sorts of things were being misdiagnosed. And when we finally get some of our real diagnosis, but we're still suffering and we're still trying to get the help we need. What we don't realize, I don't think anybody thinks of this, that all the misconceptions and misdiagnosis in your medical records are not expunged. Nobody's getting into your medical record and erasing all this stuff, all from all the years you were being misdiagnosed. So if they thought your, health issues was a mental health issue or anxiety or depression or whatever for years, that's not being expunged from your medical record. And it's so strange, like I'm walking along, I barely have the breath it's probably about 4:30 p.m. It took me this long to get dressed and go for a little walk, and I barely have the breath to do this. And, everything was being misdiagnosed for years. They thought it was anxiety or PTSD. So I'm walking around just with severe cognitive dissonance for decades, literally for decades, walking around confused. What in the hell is wrong with me? And I don't know why I'm bringing this up. I just had a memory of, like 15 years ago, and I'm sleeping 3 hours a night. 15 years ago, could barely function, and everything's being misdiagnosed. And undiagnosed apnea, no doubt, and sleepwalking and sleep eating, difficulty breathing, and nobody knows what to do with me. Nobody knows how to help me, and they're thinking it's depression, and they're sending me, offering me these mental health groups if I want to go to them. And by now, I'm largely, 95% not socializing anymore because I'm so exhausted. And, I was meeting people. I was going out for coffee occasionally. People would ask me on dates, and I would give them rain checks because I'm just totally exhausted. Wonder what this is doing out here. Just for decoration? Or maybe they washed it and they're hanging it to dry. So I pretty much stopped socializing because I just couldn't function, right? Somebody asked, I had a couple really nice guys ask me out on a date. I was sleeping 3 hours a night. When you're sleeping 3 hours a night, you're so faking you're not a fake, but you're faking you're normal. And inside, you're screaming. You're screaming for help inside. You're sleeping 3 hours a night, and you're suffering. Your mind and your body are suffering. And on the outside, you're trying to, you're not going to tell some stranger that you're sleeping 3 hours a night and you're suffering. So you're faking being your normal self. And, that's the way I lived. Just constant drowning and suffering. And not understanding what's happening. I knew I was being misdiagnosed. So I would go to some of these programs that I was being offered. Like, I'm really into arts and crafts my entire life. That's what brought me joy, throughout my whole entire life. So I went through to this arts and crafts thing, and I thought, well, I'll go there. I'll kill 2 hours, and then I joined this other thing. It was a quilting class, and I would drive miles to get to this thing. I shouldn't have even been on the road, not driving that far at least, and just barely coping. And when I'm at these things, it's really hard to socialize or connect with people when you're suffering and you're that sleep deprived. You're not your normal self. Inside, your brain is in crisis inside. And your heart and lungs, your body's in crisis. You're on edge. You're anxious because you're so sleep deprived. And not the other way around, right? You're a wreck on the inside. On the outside, I looked fine. My hair was always nice. My makeup was always nice. I was always dressed really nice. I'd go to some of these things, and people would think I was the facilitator. And it's just bizarre that, if I died, or, I've been fighting for proper health care for so long. And I know that if someone like this died, and someone did a deep dive, just out of curiosity, did a deep dive into your medical records. Sat for a couple nights in a row for hours at a time, reading through all your medical records, trying to gain some understanding of what actually happened to you or me. They would have such a 100% inaccurate idea of what was wrong with me, because all that stuff exists as if all that stuff exists as if I'm suffering from depression. I'm going to these mental health programs or something. As I'm being misdiagnosed, as everything I'm experiencing is being misdiagnosed. And I was just going to cross the street, and cars coming up behind me. Like this long, inaccurate trail can exist behind a patient. And there's no one to expunge that. It's just gross. It's disgusting. And you know what? It gets even worse than that, but I have to be careful what I say. It gets much worse than that. Like there's many untruths. And when you find out what actually happened, all the misdiagnosis, and they can be upset that you found out, and really try to make it look like a mental health issue. I can prove some of this stuff to you.
Yeah.
And it's it's unfair because you've got people who are compromised, with compromised health, chronically ill, and you're suffering, and there's no one to protect you from that, from all the misinformation in your medical records. It's crazy. So, as I've been fighting hard for healthcare the past, 10 years, 7 years, fighting hard, and I've also fought hard to try to get proper documentation and get medical records so I could see with my own eyes some of the misinformation. And I'll warn you, if you go to do this, if you're being misdiagnosed long term and they're saying it's a psych issue and it's not, and now I've been diagnosed with all sorts of things. Warning, when you're reading through that, how triggering that is. All these providers you've seen and some of these reports, some of the comments, some of their opinions in the report will just make you go through the roof. Reading misinformation about you in black and white that all doctors have access to in your medical record, and it's misdiagnosis and it's misinformation, and what it does is it misleads other doctors. It's absolutely horrifying. Absolutely, like it's so triggering, it's traumatizing. Tears, rage. Prepare yourself if you start doing a deep dive, and if you continue to be terribly misdiagnosed, I really encourage you to go get every report, even from 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, if you can. Go get everything. It's hard to put your health issues, your health story together without knowing what they're saying about you and what I can see records from 10 years ago. Oh my God, so that's why that went wrong. That's why that went south. And I didn't know that doctor wrote that down. And that's why when I walked into this specialist office, the specialist was turning me away and being disrespectful because the referral was horrible, saying horrible things, horrible derogatory things. So the specialist knew they didn't want anything to do with me before I even walked in the door, but they wanted to get paid for the appointment. They wanted to get paid to walk in and say, no, there's nothing wrong with you, and turn me away. They still get paid for that. Like, so many things like that, right? When you look back, with a clearer head and you look through all these records, it gives you a clearer story, a clearer picture of your own story on how they failed you, how you were continually misdiagnosed because they were influencing each other. Anyways, the traffic's too loud on the street, so I'll talk to you later.